This dangerously radioactive lake fills a crater left by a 1965 atomic explosion. The Cold War legacy is still looming over Kazakhstan, the main testing ground for the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons program. This is the ground zero of the Semipalatinsk nuclear test site. 40 years of Soviet atomic weapons testing have turned the area, roughly the size of Belgium, into a radioactive wasteland. 456 nuclear charges were detonated here before the site was officially closed, exactly 20 years ago. For the IAEA, Kazakhstan's decision to ban the testing and dismantle its share of the Soviet nuclear arsenal is exemplary.
Nuclear disarmament is needed, and IAEA can contribute through verification. Non-proliferation efforts are essential. Terrorists should not have nuclear material, and creation and implementation of nuclear weapon-free zone is conducive to create a world free from nuclear weapons.
Ways towards a nuke-free world were discussed at the forum that's gathered government officials, lawmakers and non-proliferation specialists from 26 countries and 18 international organizations in the Kazakh capital, 500 kilometers west of the former test site.
The weapon-free world some 20 years ago need to come to the table.
For guests like Chioko Motomura, the terror of an atomic apocalypse is too real to forget. She was 6 years old the morning Nagasaki was bombed.
Suddenly there was a blinding light filling up the kitchen. My grandmother rushed to cover my eyes, sheltering me with her body. And a moment later the thunder of the explosion and the blast wave hit our house. The windows were smashed and many shards of broken glass went into my grandmother's back. I was left unharmed, but many others were killed in the blast or died of radiation. My grandmother heavily suffered from her wounds before passing away.
Most nations agree that the world would be a better place without nuclear weapons. But the efforts to ban test explosions are stalling. 9 countries, including the United States, delay ratifying the treaty. Sam Brownback's one of those who voted against it in the US Senate.
There is a thought amongst a number of people in the United States Congress that if we sign on to the agreement, we will stand by our obligations. We say we're not going to test, we won't test. But that there are others that make obligations that will say we're not going to test, but that may go ahead and test. And that's the concern, is that the inequality of the commitment level.
This mutual distrust prevents the comprehensive nuclear tests ban from becoming an international law rather than a voluntary moratorium. Nevertheless, a new infrastructure is being deployed to ensure any future nuclear explosions will be impossible to hide.
We have around 280 facilities which are monitoring the underground, underwater, atmospheric environment. We have another 220 communication assets. Altogether, 500 facilities around the globe, around the clock, are monitoring the hopeful silence of nuclear weapon tests. If there is an explosion, there are stations which are registering the seismic signal. This signal is different compared to an earthquake. Our analysts sitting in Vienna are processing automatically and with human intervention the results. In addition to the seismic signals, there is radionuclide fingerprint of the release of materials which are only characteristic for nuclear weapon tests.
So far, the site in Kazakhstan remains the world's only nuclear testing ground that's been decommissioned. Parts of it are being developed for peaceful use, but many areas at the explosion sites are still too dangerous to get close to. A world freed from nuclear weapons may seem an idealistic utopia. However, many believe it's possible, and the emergence of nuclear weapon-free zones like Central Asia is a promise of a safer future to come.
Денис Локтев, Евроньюз.